Yo, what's up? My name's Patrouski, and this right here is a raid den within PokeMMO. Now, it is currently inactive, but these will come back, or at least should come back to the game when the Halloween event rolls around on October 31st. I need to qualify any sort of event seasonal prep by telling you guys that this is all subject to change. I don't want you to go out there, spend your last Pokeyen to make these Pokemon, and then this update never even come, or they change the way that raids work this year. I will say that this is about 90% accurate. It's pretty rare they change things super drastically between events each year, but I want you guys to know that there is a little bit of a risk heading into this. Having said that, preparing for event season in PokeMMO is one of the best ways to succeed. So you're caught in this catch-22 situation where do you take the risk to prepare? Do you not? I think the best way is to go ahead and prepare some Pokemon and understand they don't need to be amazing. Don't spend all your Pokeyen trying to make 5x31 or even 2x31 sometimes raid Pokemon. It is okay to just make a like 4x20 plus raid Pokemon with correct nature. Once again, I have over 10,000 hours in PokeMMO, and a lot of my raid Pokemon just look like this. A simple Pokemon with a 1x31 and then 20 plus and some other stats, and honestly, this is even overkill. If this Ninetales was simply 20 plus, maybe 25 plus special attack, and then 20 plus speed, and that's it, and then a modest, mild, or rash nature, you don't need the perfect nature, that would be totally usable. You don't need perfectly statted Pokemon to do raids. You honestly do just need specific species of Pokemon, and that's what we're here to talk about today. I made a list, I compiled a list of 20 Pokemon, I try to get it down to as few Pokemon as possible, 20 Pokemon that you need to do every Halloween raid in PokeMMO, hopefully in the year 2025. These are the Pokemon that worked last year. Let's go ahead and go through the first list. So the way that I actually compiled this list, and don't worry, this isn't the full list of Pokemon, the finalized list where I actually cut down on Pokemon, and I'll show you guys how I did that in a sec. We'll get to that in a quick sec, but I went through and I went back to myself, my own raid guides from last year's Halloween event, as well as Cav, a fellow PokeMMO content creator, CAAV. Love his PVM guides, love his raid guides. He does a fantastic job whenever event seasons are around. Cav is my go-to PVM content creator, personally, just my personal favorites. I recommend him. All right, let's go ahead and jump into it. First things first, you had the Galvantula Raid. Now, there were 8 total raids last year for Halloween, if you include the Darkrai raid. Only 7 raids if you don't include Darkrai, so it was less raids than typical during holiday events. But first, you had the Galvantula Raid, where the Fire team came up. I used, or I think it was me or Cav, I honestly forget which one, so apologies if I go back and forth. But one of us used Alpha Ninetales to lead with Sun and set up Sun. We used a Moltres, Charizard, Chandelure, Typhlosion, and then an Archeops. I thought that was interesting in the back, and I'll talk about Archeops in a bit more, but it's a really interesting rock-type attacker that can also set up Tailwind. That's what Archeops does best. It's a utility Pokemon that can also do damage. Next up, we had the Banette Raid, raid number 2. And once again, when you see these Pokemon overlapping like this, that's how you know it might end up in that finalized top 20 list. Archeops here, once again, do set Tailwind and do other things. We see Torkoal here. That is mostly just a suboptimal Ninetales, so you can replace that with Ninetales. A lot of the same Pokemon. Typhlosion, Blaziken, Volcarona, Darmanitan, the Fire Raid team. All right, next up, you had the Hypno Raid. Now, this one was one of the weirdest ones. You needed Dark-type attackers and Bug-type attackers. That is pretty darn specific. They ended up running a Sableye with Screens, Prankster Sableye, Honchkrow with Sucker Punch, very powerful PVM Pokemon that can get some value outside of raids as well. You got your Heracross, you got your Crocodile, Spiritomb, and Shiftry. Interesting Pokemon. Now, this is a good example of when I made my top 20 final list, I wanted to cut out as many of these Pokemon as possible, but still make it so that you guys could still beat and defeat the Hypno Raid. And I think I got there by the end of it, but let's go ahead and just continue through for now. Next up, you've got the Golurk Raid. This used a rain team strategy. We're seeing so many different Pokemon now. Pelipper to set Drizzle, Crawdaunt for good water damage, Empoleon for good water damage, Vaporeon, Blastoise, and Samurott. Samurot's interesting. It can also double as a fighting type attacker. It has like a certain, is it Sacred Sword? It has a specific fighting type move. Next up, the Scolipede Raid, just fire type raid, pretty simple here. Typhlosion, Darmanitan, Volcarona, Blaziken. I'm assuming someone set Sun with Ninetales here so they didn't have to, and then Murkrow for Tailwind and such. Most raids are just DPS battles where you basically set up a weather, whether rain or sun, and then go ahead and set up a Tailwind on the same turn. You have 2 different teammates do that, and then you just pump as much damage as possible into the raid Pokemon. Next up, there was a Mandibuzz Raid. I believe this is raid 6 out of 7, if I recall correctly. I used my trusty shiny Rampardos here. You do not have to do that. But then Murkrow in the back as well. Magnezone, Zapdos, Pikachu, and Ampharos. This is an interesting one. Ampharos and Plusle and Minun are really cheap, effective electric type attackers in raids because of the plus ability. You have to make sure they have, I think Ampharos needs hidden ability. I'm not sure about Minun and Plusle. Make sure they have the plus ability before you buy them, but you can buy these for really, really cheap off the GTL. Next up, Absol. You needed a lot of like fighting types and some bug attackers, but mostly fighting types is ideal here. You see Scizor, Breloom, Medicham, Machamp, not a great raid Pokemon, but was just usable. Once again, this is a good example of you don't need perfect raid teams to do raids. You just need good enough Pokemon. Volcarona for a Bug-Buzz, and then Blaziken. And then after this, if you defeated all 7 of the preliminary Halloween raids, you unlocked the Darkrai Raid. And here's what the Darkrai Raid, at least the first one looked like. There was the next level. So there's 4-star Darkrai Raid and 5-star, I believe, Darkrai Raid. And the 5-star one needed Primeape, so you don't see Primeape here. So there's certain things like that factor in that there's a second Darkrai tier that a lot of players didn't do. I myself didn't even do that Darkrai because I think to get the Darkrai summoning orb, you only needed to do the 4-star Darkrai, so I just did that. And I think the 5th star unlocked some like extra reward that it's like the Mystic Watches or something like that. A lot of players didn't bother with it. They just bought the watches. But this team used Blaziken, fighting type attacker, Volcarona for Bug-Buzz, Durant for a nice strong Bud physical attacker. I thought that was really cool. Darmanitan here, Medicham, and Mienshao. All right, and that is every team used for every Halloween raid. Now, let me show you guys the finalized list where I went through and I basically crossed off any Pokemon that could be skipped over. I wanted to make sure there was still at least a good usable 6 Pokemon per raid, but I wanted to cut down to as few as possible. I got down to 20 Pokemon. All right, we're going to start things off with the first 4 Pokemon in my inventory right now, actually. All the utility Pokemon. These are pretty simple. Not everybody needs these is one thing I will say. Honestly, if you have a like structured team that you can go back to for raids over and over and over again, you can only have one of your people build these, maybe 1 or 2 if someone's like asleep or offline or whatever, and just kind of reuse these. It's nice to have these. If you are solo queuing, it is crucial to have these built. I will say, if you are a solo queue raider, I mean, honestly, Arceus, bless your soul, I don't recommend solo queuing. I strongly recommend finding groups of players in a Discord, in my Discord, link down below, in your team chat, even in global chat. Just finding a pre-created group of players is going to severely increase your success in raids, and it's going to make everything a lot easier and a lot more structured. But honestly, nowadays they've added it so whenever you link up with a player, you actually see their Pokemon team over on the left side, so you can coordinate with people and talk to people to set up your team before the raid begins. But anyways, back to your utility Pokemon. You have your 2 weather setters, your Pelipper and your Ninetales. Pretty simple stuff. You want as high special attack as possible and as high speed as possible. You do not need double 31. And then you want plus damage. Almost always in raids, you want a plus damage nature. Damage is usually the biggest limiter because you're usually popping a Tailwind, which takes care of your speed. So we have our Pelipper Drizzle with also Tailwind on it as like a backup Tailwinder if it can get it off. You also see Brine ends up being a really good move in a lot of raids. And then we have over here our Ninetales. Pretty simple stuff. Ninetales does have to have hidden ability access. That's an important note. Pelipper does not, doesn't need that. But Ninetales needs hidden ability access. So make sure if you buy yourself or build yourself a raid Ninetales, you get hidden ability access, or else it will be like entirely useless, which is brutal. You want high special attack, high speed. That's really it. Next up, you have your Murkrow. Now, these are 2 different builds of Murkrows because sometimes this is a tough one. Sometimes you want Murkrow with bulk, like mine is here, and then sometimes you want it without bulk. If I were to recommend you to build one of these, I would honestly build the worst one without bulk, because I think often you just want your Murkrow to die. Usually, you want your Murkrow to come in, set up Tailwind with Prankster so it has a priority, and then just die. That's usually what your Murkrow to do. Now, having Haze and Defog and Quash and Foul Play, other things in the back is super nice, but make sure you just have Prankster, Tailwind, and you'll do most of the things you want to do. Once again, just buying a really cheap Murkrow off the GTL with terrible stats. You don't even need speed. You see this one being Jolly Nature, 31 speed, 252 speed EVs. You can do that. You don't need it. You're usually getting your Prankster proc. That only matters if some Pokemon is like turning off abilities or something like that for some reason, but you're probably going to be fine. Next up is Sableye. I will say I feel like Sableye has fallen off a little bit when it comes to raids, but it was still used a fair bit last year for certain raids. Similar situation to Murkrow. The first turn of raids was always used as setup. So you'll have 4 different players. Usually only one goes damage on the first turn. It's usually someone, player 1 leads with like Drought Ninetales, for example, and sets up Sun. Player 2 leads with Tailwind Murkrow, sets up Speed. And then player 3, or maybe even player 4, both lead with Utility Sableye. One sets up Reflect, the other sets up Light Screen. Now you have a totally prepared battle and fight that you can just go into your damage dealers and pop the hell off, right? That's often what raids is that big setup turn followed up by as much damage as possible. But here are the 2 different Sableyes that I have built. Now keep in mind, Gravity, I wanted to show off, Gravity is a relevant move in raids. This comes up every now and again, so make sure you have some sort of Pokemon with Gravity, or at least like a Gravity, is it a TM, I assume? At least have one Gravity TM in your bag in case you need to teach a Pokemon Gravity on the fly. And most of the items are really cheap for these utility Pokemon. You probably go Damp Rock for Pelipper, you probably go the Heat Rock for Ninetales, and then you probably end up going on Murkrow, maybe like Rocky Helmet. I don't even know if it matters what item you go on Murkrow. And then Sableye, if you're going double screens, you would do Light Clay. These are very, 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 very cheap items in PokeMMO. I think Light Clay costs literally less than 1,000 Pokeyen or around that. Alright, but this is meant to be a quick video, so let's get going and speed things up. If you want a full detailed list of every single raid Pokemon you could possibly make in PokeMMO, I do have a video for that as well, and it should be linked in the description, hopefully. If not, you can yell at me in the comments. But here is the other 16 Pokemon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Yeah, 16 other Pokemon. These are all of your damage dealers. With these damage dealers, you should be able to get through every raid Pokemon. There's plenty of fire types here for the Galvantula Raid. Things like Volcarona, Solar Power Charizard. I wrote down, very specific things you have to have on them. So you have your Volcarona with like your Fire Blast, or your it's some sort of specific, actually. Volcarona gets a specific fire type move, if I'm not mistaken. Fiery Dance, you can go ahead and rock on that if you want to, but it's unlikely it will survive. Usually you would go like Flamethrower or Fire Blast. Solar Power Charizard, similar situation. Typhlosion, you just go Eruption, it's a fire type attacker. Archeops, you have Tailwind, Defog, Access, and Rock Slide or Stone Edge or whatever rock type offensive move you want to use here. Now you want to go now I will say, you want to go the more accurate moves unless you are setting up with Defog. Defog lowers the evasion of your opponent's, your raid Pokemon. So if someone is leading Defog, that's going to make your Stone Edges a lot more accurate. So instead of 80% accurate, it's going to be boosted up to like 90 or 95 or something like that. So you can do that. But if you're not defogging first turn, go the safe route. If you have a constructed group of players who don't mind going back to back and just running it back, but usually you want the consistency. If you find yourself not doing enough damage, go ahead and go for the risky plays. You got your Darmanitan. Darmanitan, just a fucking beast of a Pokemon that just does so much damage with everything, even if it's non-stab. A non-stab superpower from Darmanitan just does stupid damage because this Pokemon's base attack stat is so ludicrously high at 140. Don't sleep on Darmanitan, one of the most powerful raid Pokemon for sure. It can just do so much. Rocking the Rock Slide, the Flare Blitz, and then the superpower for fighting. You've then got your Blaziken, which does fire and fighting. Make sure to bring in your slower raid Pokemon like Blaziken at only 80 base stat speed. Bring these guys in early before your Tailwind possibly wears out. That is another thing to factor in during raids, is to bring your slower mons in a little bit early. Get that use of them under Tailwind. Then you have your Krookodile, which does Dark and Ground. Your Honchkrow, which does Dark with a nice Sucker Punch attack. Your Blastoise with Water Spout damage. Your Crawdaunt, that does really good damage. Make sure for Crawdaunt, you have to get hidden ability. You need adaptability Crawdaunt for this Pokemon to be powerful. Otherwise, it's going to be way too weak. And for Blastoise, keep in mind, Water Spout is an egg move. You have to chain breed that over, I believe, across. You either start from, I think you start from Wailmer into Remoraid and then into Blastoise, some sort of chain like that. I have a video on it on my channel. And then Samurott, you need, just water and fighting type attacks. Zapdos, you're an electric type attacker with Thunder if you're under Rain, or just Discharge or Thunderbolt if you're not. Pikachu does really good damage with Light Ball. It's a really cheap raid Pokemon, which is fantastic, and can also go physical or special attacking. Ampharos, Plusle, and Minun, we talked about them vaguely earlier, but they basically have the Plus ability, which really, really significantly boosts their damage. So Plus reads, ups the special attack if another Pokemon has plus or minus on the battlefield. This, doubles their damage. It's either 1.5 times or doubles. It's a really significant damage boost, but it only matters if there's another Pokemon on the battlefield. So if you are using Ampharos, you need everyone else in your team, or at least many others, to also be using Ampharos. The worst situation is someone brings in their Ampharos too early, or you bring in yours too late, you don't bring them on the same turn, and now you've just lost a shit ton of damage in that raid fight. And then next up is Metacham with fighting damage and Mienshao with fighting damage. Pretty simple, just big close combat spammers. Metacham's a bit slower, so you generally do want to put something like a Choice Scarf on that Pokemon. You're gonna want choice items, choice specs, choice scarf, choice band. And usually there is item clause for raids, so you have to like figure out which Pokemon you want to put your one choice band on, which Pokemon you want to put your one choice scarf on, etc, etc. So having one of a ton of different items like life orbs, even like wise glasses, having a ton of different damage boosting items is going to be super important. Or even having the gems. The gems are ridiculously powerful in raids. Make sure you have a small collection of different types of gems to throw on some Pokemon here and there, like the fighting gems and fire gems, and even bug and dark type gems, and ghost gems are fantastic. Alright, but I believe that is everything. If you want to see full builds for these Pokemon, whether they're physical or special attackers, ask me questions in the comments. I will try to respond to everything I possibly can, as well as, once again, I have a full in-depth video, 2.5-hour video. You can just skip around. There's plenty of timestamps if you don't want to watch all that, of course. Plenty of videos covering different raid Pokemon builds, but I thought I would throw this one out there as sort of a quick guide for those who want to just know, hey man, what Pokemon do I need to build? And then once the raids roll around, I'll figure it out. I think that's what I wanted this guide to be, so I really hope it was helpful. If you enjoyed, make sure to like the video. That is tremendously helpful to me. And subscribe if you want to see PokeMMO videos every single day. I do upload every single day on YouTube. I love this game so much, and I have no plans of stopping playing it anytime soon. And if you want to follow me on Twitch, I usually stream Monday through Thursday, although I have been slowing down a little bit as it's kind of the off season of Pokemon as people are preparing for the event season. And then once event season rolls around, I'll be streaming a lot more over on Twitch, and I stream on YouTube as well if you prefer watching on that platform. Discord is down below to join an amazing group of players who want to, do well in these upcoming event seasons. You can talk to them, prepare with them, etc, etc. And if you want to go above and beyond and support my channel, if my guides have helped you enough to warrant it, that is crucial to me. If my content has actually helped your journey and you can afford it, YouTube memberships, Twitch primes, Twitch subs, and PayPal and Venmo keep the lights on and allow me to actually make this content. So thank you guys for watching. Have a great day, and looking forward to the PokeMMO holiday event season. Hopefully you guys are as well, and best of luck to you. Yo, what's up? Outro Patrouski here, and I wanted to take this time to say thank you to everyone who goes above and beyond and supports my channel. Your names are all listed here. You make it possible for me to make helpful and mildly entertaining content for the game that I love, and make it available for free for everyone to enjoy. Thank you so much for allowing me to even be here.